In this movie, I'll show you how to save a color as a swatch inside Illustrator. And swatches are essentially squares of saved colors that you can access anytime you like from the swatches panel. And the swatches panel is found in many locations in Illustrator, as we'll see. Now, the great thing about swatches is that they help you establish a color theme inside of a document. They also help you to stick with that color theme. And finally, they automate the application of colors to both strokes and fills. And so the practical upshot is that if you think you're going to use a color more than once inside of a document, go ahead and save it as a swatch. Now, the first step is to define a color here inside the color panel. And so you can adjust these HSB values to anything you like, for example. Or you can just go ahead and click on an object that's already colored inside of your illustration. For example, I'm going to click on this hexagon around the month of March, and we'll see its HSB values. The thing is, this is a CMYK document, as you can see up here in the title tab. And so the primary values are going to make more sense if I click on the flyout menu icon in the top right corner of the color panel and choose CMYK. And then as you can see, we've got a cyan value of 30, a yellow value of 30, and the other two values are set to 0. All right, now let's go ahead and save this color as a swatch by going to the window menu and then dropping way down here to the bottom of that menu. And my screen is so short that I have to scroll down. But one way or other, you should find the swatches command, which will bring up the swatches panel. Now, by default, the swatches are pretty darn dinky, which is why I like to go ahead and click on this flyout menu icon and choose medium thumbnail view in order to make them a little larger like so. And then I'll just go ahead and drag the bottom edge of the panel to expose all the swatches associated with this document. All right, now all you have to do is click on the little page icon, which just as it makes a new layer or a new artboard, creates a new swatch inside the swatches panel. And it'll be automatically named after its CMYK values, as you're seeing here. But you can override that name if you like, just by entering in your own name. And I'm going to call this guy Seafoam and click OK. And sure enough, I have a new swatch here inside the swatches panel. And now I can use that swatch to fill a different shape. So for example, I'm going to zoom in on the month of September, and I'm going to click this rear item right here. Can you see that there's actually one hexagon inset within another? So go ahead and click on the outline of the outermost hexagon for September, and then make sure the fill is active up here at the top of the swatches panel. And if it isn't, if the stroke is active instead, then you can just click on the fill, or you've got that keyboard shortcut that's popping up there, which is the X key. So you press the X key to switch back and forth between the fill and stroke. Either inside the swatches panel or inside the color panel works as well. All right, I'll go back to the swatches panel here. And with the fill active, you can just go ahead and click on Seafoam, and you will adjust that rear shape's fill. Another way to work, I'll go ahead and undo that by pressing Control-Z or Command-Z on the Mac, is to go over here to this first swatch on the far left side of the control panel and click on it to bring up a miniature version of the swatches panel. And if you'd like these thumbnails to be bigger as well, then click on this flyout menu and choose medium thumbnail view. And you'll be able to see your thumbnails a lot better. And now you can just go ahead and click Seafoam. And so the idea here is it doesn't matter whether the fill or stroke is active. If I undo that change and click on the stroke here in the swatches panel, I can still go ahead and click on the first swatch, which represents the fill no matter what, and select Seafoam, and that will affect the fill and not the stroke. All right, another way to work is to drag and drop. So let's say I click on the hexagon for April right there. Why, then I could save that color as a swatch, either by switching to my two-column toolbox by clicking on that little double arrowhead icon, and I can grab the fill right there, and I can drag it and drop it into the swatches panel, just like so. Or I'll undo that change, by the way, so anything you do in the swatches panel is undoable. You can also drag from the control panel and drag it into the swatches panel. Or, here's another way to work, you can drag and drop from the color panel. Now, if we were working in the Essentials workspace, as by default, then our color panel and our swatches panel would be in different groups. And so that way, if I were to go ahead and expand the color panel by clicking on this little double arrowhead icon a couple of times, I could just drag and drop like so. But I'll just go ahead and undo that because I want to show you, if you're working with this one-on-one workspace, as I recommended a couple of chapters ago, Then you can't see the color and swatches panels at the same time because they're in the same group. But watch this. You can go ahead and click on that swatch and then drag it over to the tab, to the swatches tab, wait for the swatches tab to come up in front, and then just drop your swatch into place. Now, you may wonder after all this, well, gosh, it seems so much easier just to click on a little page icon as opposed to dragging and dropping. The advantage of dragging and dropping, however, is that you can drop your swatch in a specific location. So, for example, I want all these colors to be in the same order as they appear in the months, and so I want to drop that new color right there at that location, as opposed to this guy right here, Seafoam, which came in at the end. And you can drag your swatches around if you want to, but that is, of course, the second step. Now, I am going to have to rename the swatch I just created in a separate step by double-clicking on it, and then I'll just go ahead and call this guy Harlequin, let's say, and I'll click OK in order to accept that new swatch name. Now, note that I have messed things up. The stroke was active, and now I've changed the stroke to the same shade of green, and that happened as soon as I double-clicked on it, by the way. And the best way to remedy that is to just click on white, which is one of the default swatches in Illustrator, and that will go ahead and return the stroke to its original color, after which point I'll go ahead and click off the shape to deselect it. And that's how you save your colors as swatches, as well as how you apply a swatch to a fill or a stroke of a selected object here inside Illustrator.